You're watching Canadian Muslim News from Toronto, Ontario. I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. Today a conversation with Adam Carroll, UN Program Director for Justice for All US. First, some news headlines. Canadian Muslim Trailblazer passes away. Elderly Muslim man assaulted in London, Ontario. 34 children dead in 7 months while in care of province of Alberta. Republican Congresswoman apologises for Islamophobic remarks about Ilhan Omar. An archaeological exhibition commemorates International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. And now the details. Canadian Muslim leader and community icon Wahida Chisti Valianti passed away in Toronto on Friday. Valianti was among the early Muslims who pushed against Islamophobia and racism. She was also a strong figure in interfaith dialogue and an educator on matters of mental health. Valianti was recognized 4 times as one of the most influential Muslims in the world by Georgetown University in Washington. She was also one of the earliest female leaders to head a national Muslim organization in Canada, most notably her position as vice president and then president of the Canadian Islamic Congress, which she co-founded and served for 13 years. Valianti will be dearly missed, and her legacy will continue to live in the hearts of Canadian Muslims for years to come. First responders said that no charges would be laid against a man who shouted Islamophobic and racist remarks while dragging Mohammed Tahir out of his car in a Costco parking lot in London, Ontario. Tahir, a 75-year-old man, his daughter and son-in-law were waiting to park their car when they were targeted by the motorist. The Tahirs had unintentionally prevented the motorist from reversing his car. The man approached Tahir's car, banged on the windows and ripped off the windshield wipers. Bystanders and Costco employees intervened and de-escalated the situation. The London police say that they are actively investigating the incident. 34 children died while receiving child services from the province of Alberta in the span of 7 months. A new report released by the province shows that 68% of the children were Indigenous. It also shows that a majority of children died either during their initial assessment or when they were transitioning from care. Rebecca Schultz, the Minister of Children's Services, has since requested a review of the government's intervention policy. Colorado Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert has tweeted an apology to the Muslim community after a video surfaced of her making anti-Muslim comments about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. In it, Boebert implied she had mistaken Omar for a terrorist in an elevator on Capitol Hill. On Friday, Omar called on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy to take action against Boebert. Boebert has a history of racism and ties to far-right and white supremacist groups. During the January 6th insurrection, she tweeted House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's location. She has also appeared at events with far-right militias. An exhibition of historical and archaeological artifacts was held on the occasion of International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people at the 1700-year-old St. Hilarion Monastery in the Nusayrat refugee camp in Gaza City yesterday. The exhibition presented visitors with handicrafts belonging to the cultural heritage of Palestine. Speaking to Anadolu agency Video News, Palestine's Deputy Minister of Tourism, Ibrahim Jabir, said that the event was to show that the Palestinian people have a right to the land. It is estimated that the St. Hilarion Monastery, which is among the oldest historical monuments of Gaza, was built in 329 AD. That's it for the news. And now our conversation with Adam Carroll of Justice for All USA. He is Director of UN Programs and lead of their Burma Task Force campaign. Now, Justice for All USA, which is advocacy work for persecuted Muslim minorities in the world, the parent company is Sound Vision Foundation, which is also the parent company of our Canadian Muslim News. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Adam, and welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Justice for All is a non-profit advocacy group based in the US, and there's also a sister organization in Canada, and you do advocacy work for persecuted Muslim minorities around the world. Could you please just share with the audience who might not be aware of your work, just a brief overview of what you're doing at your organization?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you. Justice for All was founded over 25 years ago by Imam Malik Mujahid, and he was responding to the crisis in Bosnia, the genocide of Muslims, the mass rape of Muslim women, Bosnian women, and was a leader in the response from the international community, civil society. Then, after that, he established Kosovo Task Force when the crisis in Kosovo resulted in almost 1 million displaced Kosovars fleeing. That situation, that crisis was resolved, and most of the Kosovars who were Albanian from Kosovo were able to return, but there was a conflict and there were many people killed, and there are still bad feelings in the region. But so there's a history of responding to crises, and Imam Malik started this trend between Kosovo and the genocide in Burma, the genocide of the Rohingya minority in Burma. Justice for All was relatively quiet. But since 2012, we've been working on behalf first of the Rohingya in Burma, a Muslim minority there that unfortunately received worse and worse treatment, persecution, then mass atrocities, mass rape, and then mass displacement. So in short, a genocide.
And is that when you joined? Is that when you joined?
I joined in 2013, and in the first few years of my involvement, I focused only on Burma and the Rohingya especially. But then in around 2017 or so, we began to work on behalf of the Uyghur Muslims in China, in Xinjiang, East Turkestan, and then the Muslim population in Sri Lanka, the Muslim minority in India, and also the people of Kashmir. So all of these programs involve Muslim populations. And obviously, as Muslim Americans, we care about all people, the suffering of all people and all vulnerable populations. But it was natural for us as a Muslim American organization to speak on behalf of persecuted Muslim minorities, which is mainly our focus.
When you're giving the history there, I must admit, I was a bit surprised to hear that it was that old, 25 years. Do you have any idea why? Is it because I'm in Canada? Like, is Justice for All work maybe not well known outside a certain select group of people who are interested in human rights?
Perhaps, I mean, it's not a household name generally like Amnesty International, though we work in partnership with them, or Human Rights Watch, other human rights groups. It's a Muslim American organization that focuses on human rights, which frankly really needs to be promoted in our communities. We don't work only on racial justice, though sometimes we do that. We don't work only on domestic issues, but we work globally. And our community is so diverse, it's difficult sometimes to get people's attention. There's a crisis in Palestine, and people focus on that.
Now, you're director of the United Nations program, which you just mentioned, Global Focus. Tell us a little bit about then. What do you do with the United Nations?
Well, yeah, as the liaison, I try to make sure that our concerns are at least talked about in the UN. The UN means many things. It's the agencies like UNICEF, UN Development, UN, the WHO. I mean, there's so many different UN agencies. The Human Rights Agency is called OHCHR, and the Agency for Refugees is UNHCR. So all these different groups, some of them are well funded, dealing and responding to really important uh, global suffering. But on the other hand, as everyone knows, UN is very politicized and very uh, all about talk. And China and Russia, for example, are trying to prevent human rights from becoming a priority. And they block work on the Rohingya, they block work on the Uyghur, they intimidate other missions, they intimidate civil society and try to run them out of the UN. So, as a
How do
civil
you deal
society
with
group,
that? How do you deal
yeah,
with that?
well, I mean, we've been accredited at the UN as a civil society group since 2015. And so we deal with it by remaining true to our principles and also offering support to other groups. But I do see that some of our partners and colleagues do get intimidated, and they worry about being pushed out of the system.
And
The pandemic, though, has been a real challenge as well. I mean, beyond China and Russia, or India for that matter, the countries that bully us, the pandemic has really shut the doors. And we've been doing online work with the UN, but it's not the same.
is that because normally you're sort of knocking on doors?
Yeah, running through the hallways and chasing diplomats.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that the Muslim community, we often, I don't even know how to say this properly, but we cry foul when Muslims are discriminated against. But you mentioned that there isn't really necessarily a great focus on human rights issues. A lot of Muslim majority countries haven't stood up for Uyghur, for example. They're, in fact, the opposite, siding with China. So how do you kind of fit the your work in between those currents?
Yeah, that's very disappointing. And we see the member nations of the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, who are unfortunately largely supportive of China's policies, genocidal policies. So it's shameful to see, so whether it's Saudi Arabia or Pakistan or other countries. Um, I see a little bit of a positive trend. But what we do is we write to the missions, we write to the ambassadors, we compliment them if they do the right thing, we criticize them if they do the wrong thing. A lot of stuff gets said behind the scenes. Sometimes it's more important that you push them in public, but we're not always in position to do that. But that said, we hear from the diplomatic staff, and they often say to us, at least, that they read our reports when we write about different human rights abuses or trends. They say, "We need what you're sending. Please keep doing it.
That's very
Keep being
gratifying.
active."
That's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
gratifying. So we're almost out of time. How can the community here in Canada and the US support the work that you're doing with Justice for All?
Well, yes, we do need support. We've had challenges of getting funding during the pandemic, and but we need to keep this going. This is really part of our Dean, our faith in action, and so people can go to our website, of course, which is we have several websites. The main one is www.justiceforall.org. But we also have a burmataskforce.org website. We have others as well. But if you go to our main website, Justice for All, you can get directed to all our websites. And that said, we're having a fundraiser coming up. We always have webinars. We always have panel discussions. We have something at the UN coming up on December 9th, Genocide Day. But for the fundraiser on December 5th, it would be great if people would join and make a contribution. No amount is too small. We'd really just appreciate the support.
The fundraiser is going to be a virtual or a live, in person?
This particular one will be virtual, and people can just connect to the theme is Love Ummah, JFA, and I think probably the link will be posted.
Well, we thank you very much for the work you're doing and for taking some time out to come and talk to us on the show today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So if you want to look at the Love Omar and support human rights for Muslim minorities who are being persecuted around the world, you can check out the website. And as Brother Adam said, no contribution is too small. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode. Stay safe and God bless.